Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm back again with another video. This video is going to be about the Steve Stevenson nightmare. It's been weighing heavily on my mind. Besides the fact that people lost their lives, I really find it quite disturbing that a grown man can find a way to blame his monstrous acts on his mother and his ex-girlfriend. I don't understand it. I really can't fathom it. Obviously, the man suffered from a lot of different mental and emotional issues. He said that his mom created a monster. I don't know. I don't know those people personally. Perhaps he may have had good reason to dislike his mother. Maybe she abused him or neglected him, or maybe she was narcissistic herself and didn't treat him the way that he was supposed to be treated. But at no point should she ever, or any mother or parent, ever be held responsible for the acts of their grown children. I don't care how poorly you were raised, if you were brought up in a civilized society, a society that has cultural norms, rules for morality, laws, at some point along the way, you're going to, even if you don't have, unless you just lack any sort of conscience, you're going to know the difference between what's considered right or wrong, regardless of whether you respect those rules that have been put in place to distinguish right acts from wrong acts or immoral acts from moral acts. You're going to know the difference. In my opinion, there's no way that someone can blame their parents, even if they were brought up in the most hostile and worst of situations, that they can blame their acts once they become an adult on their parents. That's to me just an excuse and a cop out. I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he put out his ex girlfriend's name to the public and his mother's full name to the public. I believe that he really didn't have any intentions of killing them. I'm just speculating. I don't know what was going on in the man's mind, but it seems to me that he planned all along to kill himself and that he was going to just leave his mom and his girlfriend behind to suffer the wrath of the public and outrage. There are some crazy, irrational people out there that are actually siding with him in a sense and saying that it is the mom's fault and his ex girlfriend's fault that he committed these heinous acts. There's people now in social media threatening these women and harassing them and cyber stalking them because of what happened. And you know, I can't believe that people are that barbaric and uncivilized that they would gang stalk the ex girlfriend and the mom for what he chose to do. It just shows that we as a society have sunken to the lowest low when people can blame others for someone going out and committing murders on innocent people. Like how can you do that? How do you blame two women who probably had no idea that this guy would snap? I mean, I know he mentioned in one of his videos that he told his mom that he was suffering from suicidal thoughts, but she didn't take it, in his own words, she didn't take him seriously. So obviously she would have never, probably would have never thought that he would go out and just start randomly killing people. For people to get on social media and start attacking these women, it's almost in a way like they're indirectly validating his acts, and at the same time telling the ex-girlfriend that she doesn't have a right to break up with someone who she no longer loves or no longer feels safe or comfortable with. That's like the ultimate form of manipulation and bullying, when you can go on social media and harass people who are in a way victims themselves of this tragic situation. It also shows that people are, lacking in understanding about certain mental illnesses. Like, how do we know that, first of all, we're not in a position to judge anyone in this situation. We're really not in a position to judge Steve Stevenson. We're not in a position to judge his mother or his ex-girlfriend. And how do we know that this man wasn't suffering from paranoia or delusions? His mom could have been the best mother in the world, and in his own mind, it could have been that he was imagining that his mother was mistreating him or doing things that were wrong. We don't have a full understanding of his situation and his life circumstances, so we're not in a position to judge any of these people. It just shows that people don't understand mental illness. They don't have any compassion for people who are mourning a loss right now. A mother has lost her son, and I'm sure the ex-girlfriend is devastated by his loss as well. And not only that, their lives will never be the same. Someone who they knew intimately took someone's lives, and possibly took other people's lives. So their lives will never be the same. This is something that's they're going to live with for the rest of their lives. And people are attacking. Another thing that concerns me is whenever something like this goes wrong, why is it that we tend to blame mothers? Why why aren't people shining the spotlight on absentee fathers, or fathers who weren't active in their children's lives in the way that they should have been? Like, why does the mother always have to take the blame? And I would like to know, what role did Steve Stevenson's father play in his life? Did he have a father? Did he have any male role models that could give him guidance or advice? I'm just curious about that. When I was coming up, there were these two young girls, young ladies, around my age. They were sisters, and it just so happens that our parents knew one another. My father grew up with their father, and their mother grew up with my mother. Anyhow, one thing that I observed about these two young ladies is that oftentimes they would show up to school very unkempt. This was when we were going to elementary school, because we all attended the same elementary school together. And they would show up with their hair just all over the place, not combed and styled. It's just like they just rolled out of bed and didn't do anything with their hair. Would have cotton and lint all up in their hair. Sometimes they would come to school smelling like pee, as if they peed the bed and didn't wash up before coming to school. Their clothes would have stains. Um, Sometimes it would be apparent that they didn't wash their face or brush their teeth, because the breath smelled like morning breath. And they would have the slobber on the side. I'm not trying to be graphic and nasty, but I'm just explaining to you that it was just apparent that their parents weren't tending to them in the way that a parent should tend to their children. I was a kid, but I understood that something wasn't right within their household, because that's not how my parents treated me. I used my parents as a framework of reference. My parents made sure that we all had food to eat every day. They made sure that we had proper rest. They made sure that we were properly clothed and cleaned and presentable. They made sure that we did our homework, everything that a parent is supposed to do. That's what our parents did for us. So even as a child, I understood that something wasn't right within their household. Years later, the subject of these two young ladies came up in a conversation between me and my mom. What I found out is that the parents of those two girls had serious issues. From what my mom was telling me, the father had substance abuse problems, and he was also a sex addict, running around with different women and committing adultery because, the parents were married. And on top of that, the mother was in and out of the mental hospital. So she had a lot of mental and psychological issues. It became apparent to me that neither one of these people were adequately prepared to be good parents. But it's just like people who aren't supposed to have children are having a lot of children and bringing children into this world to needlessly suffer. But anyway, the point I was going to make is that in spite of the fact that these girls weren't being taken care of properly by their parents, they love their parents to death. They love their parents to death. Now contrast that with this man, Steve Stevenson, and so many others who hate their parents or or have mommy issues or daddy issues. I think those two girls, which we called our cousins when we were growing up, because that was what kids did. They would, if they were really close to, if we were really close to some other kids in the neighborhood, we sometimes say that those kids or those people were our cousins, even though we weren't blood related. But anyhow, I think that if anybody had a reason to hate their parents, it would have been those two girls, which is quite interesting to me. Even a person who has been abused, neglected, disrespected, hurt, even if you have good reason, let's say you were abused by your parents, you were neglected by your parents, and you have good reason to hate your parents with a passion, you're going to have to make a choice in your life. You're going to have to eventually make a decision as to whether you're going to continue living with the hatred and the resentment that you feel and the bitterness that you may feel towards your mother or father or whoever it is that may have done you wrong. Because ultimately, you're doing more harm to yourself than you are to anyone else. Especially if you don't have a lot of contact with your parents, you're really harming yourself. You're getting in the way of your own healing and your own progress in life by holding on to those negative feelings. Eventually, you're just going to have to learn to let go. To, even if you don't fully forgive those who may have hurt you in the past, you're going to have to learn somehow or some way to let go of all of those negative emotions in order to begin the healing process and to move on with your life, because it's just like a weight that's holding you down and keeping you from moving forward in your life and causing you to become stagnant. And not only that, that those negative feelings that you may have are going to be subconsciously expressed and cause you problems in other relationships in your life. Relationships that you may have with your own children or relationships that you may have with other family members, friends, and romantic partners. It's going to cause problems for you and spill over into other areas of your life with other people. So you're going to have to basically grow up, ask for help if you need it, if you have a problem coping and getting past those feelings. Seek therapy and counseling if you have to. You know, there should never be a point. It should never come to a point where you get so depressed, so angry, and so bitter that you think about harming yourself or harming others. And that's all I have to say.